Peace on Earth only has the value if humans grasp it for themselves. Here's your look at the Threezero Ultraman Season 2, the 1/6 scale Ultraman suit of Zoffy. From the Ultraman Season 2 anime, Ultraman suit Zoffy is now available as a 1/6 scale articulated figure. This Ultraman suit is worn by Shin Hayata, the father of Shinjira, who once had fused with Ultraman to protect the Earth in his youth. FigZero 1/6 scale Ultraman suit Zoffy anime version stands approximately 30.5 centimeters tall and is a fully articulated figure with over 40 points of articulation. The collectible has detailed paint applications and decals, which is constructed partially of die-cast zinc alloy and other metal parts. LED light-up features are installed in the eyes and the color timer on the chest. Just before we get down to the details on the Zoffy Ultraman suit, I'd like to first thank the folks over at Threezero that did provide the anime Ultraman Season 2 FigZero 1/6 scale Ultraman suit of Zoffy anime version that we could have a look at in this video. The figure is currently sold out over on their sites, but the price point for what this figure was going for was $149 or about $150. So if you're interested, get this one for yourself. While there might not be, though, any more available on their site, you can certainly check around to other various sites that sell collectibles from Threezero. With that being said, let's grab the tape measure now and see how tall the figure stands. Now, right to the very top of the head I go. You're looking at Zoffy's suit standing exactly, in this case, 12 inches in height, or the figure's going to be about 30 centimeters tall. Figured first, the thing we'd look at is the instruction sheet that comes included with Zoffy. It isn't, in this case, so much an instruction booklet, as it's one sheet printed on both sides. If you would consider this to be the back side, it shows you how to install the Specium Blade effect parts, and also how to install the Ultra Slash effects, all of which I will touch base on in this review. And of course, it shows you how to move the posability parts on Zoffy. But the main part, the front part, shows you not only the breakdown of all the things that come included with, like the Specium Blade effect pieces, the Ultra Slash effects, but it also more importantly shows you where to install the AG1 batteries. As normally the case, Threezero does not include the batteries with the figure, so you have to go and pick these up for yourself. Simply just go into places like Amazon, for example. I could get myself an entire tray of those, and I just recently, in fact, stocked up on my AG1 batteries, and I think I got myself a tray, I want to say like 8 to 10 of them, and it was around $8. You need actually 2 AG1 batteries installed into the top dome of Zoffy's helmet, and then you actually have to install another set of AG1 batteries on the back of his torso to light up, of course, the time effect on the front of his chest. All of which, again, we will look at in a moment. Actually, maybe just before we look at the accessories, I'd show you where the battery compartments are stored on Zoffy. The first of which, let's pick the figure up right now, getting a closer look at his helmet. First of all, fantastic head sculpt from the folks over at Threezero. But more importantly, the accessible area for the batteries, I find it's easiest. You'll see like there's a little lip on the front of his face, what would be his face. I find it's actually easiest just to take your finger in there and pop the front plate off. Essentially what you need to do is you need to remove this whole top canopy area. And then once that's removed, simply just unscrew the battery compartment located here on the top and install your 2 required AG1 batteries. Once those are, though, installed, simply just take the switch that's located on the front here and switch it over to the front. Now, it may not be as bright as, for example, as his chest. His chest is actually a lot brighter. It also helps, too, that this is blue and this is yellow. But you can still see that they have successfully lit up the front of his eyes. The only thing about it, though, is in order to access this, you have to remove the dome every single time to turn on to the batteries, and then you have to do the exact same steps in order to turn it off. But for right now, at least, it gives you a nice effect. Let's pop this back into place. You'll see also on the inside of the dome cover that there's a couple of holes, 3 in fact, and those line up then with the provided pegs on the top. So again, you just pop that into place, lining up everything accordingly, and then snap that down. The other battery compartment located for his chest is not actually in his chest, but rather on the back of the figure's body. This area right here, and though the instructions actually more so kind of indicate that you have to remove the section from the spine, what you will need to do is actually take this entire piece off. This is not an easy thing to do. And again, you just sort of have to wiggle it back and forth. There was the first time that I did this, I was a little more worried because it wasn't releasing right away. And always when you have larger panels like this of plastic, You always worry that if you put too much pressure against this, this may then buckle the plastic. But just a little bit of wiggling back and forth until eventually it gives way. Unscrew the battery compartment right here. Install then your two AA or your two AG1 batteries and screw that back in place. One thing though, while you are putting this back in place, if you happen to have picked up the figure for yourself, you'll notice that this won't sit flat. I just assumed it would sit as flat as it would, but it actually does stick up just a little bit. And this little peg right here will in fact connect to the peg on the inside panel. And again, don't worry, this time around, you don't have to actually lift the panel off every single time you need to access the front light up chest. All this time around you need to do is just simply press the button on the front, and you can see it illuminates a very bright blue. I wish that they could have done something similar here for the face area here, where it didn't involve me having to take this off. I mean, obviously, it doesn't take really much at all to remove the top piece and access the batteries, but I wish it was as simple as simply just pressing the button on the front like he has for his chest. And this is, again, super easy. More companies that are doing die-cast figures with light-up functions need to really take take an example from Threezero as to how to access these batteries. I don't even have to really remove a lot of things. Certainly when we have looked at die-cast figures from before, from other companies, you have to always remove things. You always have to take panels off to turn on switches. And while, yes, you still have to do that technically with Zoffy's head, it's a lot easier than having to pull off tiny little panels and break the plastic in the process. So let's go for right now at least, and we'll turn everything off. Again, we'll probably put these back on when we get to the final looks of the figure. Just again, remove this switch. I might also add a very long switch. I'm just going to switch that off though. And then we're just going to put that back in place. So while that's now all turned off, let's run through the accessories that come included with the figure. He doesn't come with a lot, to be fair, but I think he comes with just the right things. Oh, I did actually turn this on in the process. But let's run through all the accessories that come included with the figure. I guess, first of all, we'll have a look at the hands. The hands, first of all, the figure comes included with a relaxed pair of hands, which isn't so much relaxed. You can see there's a little bit more dynamic gesturing, though, for those individual fingers. The hands themselves are painted extremely well in a nice metallic silver. You can see as well it does have the same similar blue on the inside, but though unlike the chest, these don't illuminate. All in all, though, nice looking hands. Initially, I may have thought that they could have included articulation points to the fingers, but that doesn't always get a successful look to the hands, and a lot of times it looks a lot more just like broken up pieces of finger that you have to then bend yourself. I much just prefer, I would think, just more posed hands like this, gestured hands. The figure also comes included just behind the back there. It comes also with a pair of Specium beam shooting posing hands. Now these give us at least the opportunity to see some additional black that they've colored the inside or the underside of the fingers. Still though, you get the blue nicely treated to the bottom, but again, like if you did want to have the figure displayed with the beam shooting hands, then these are the hands you're going to want to use. Lastly, though, the figure also comes included with a pair of posed hands, which really, though, if to describe these based at least on the instruction manual, I mean, I would really consider that both the hands are posing hands. I mean, these are just as posable, I would say, in the sense of how you could pose the figure, as I would say these hands. These hands kind of give us more like a Spider-Man pose, with the hands all sort of fanned out like a wave, whereas these hands are kind of bringing the fingers a little bit more closer to the palm, at least two of them. But all in all, like nice looking hands on all of these. If you did want to change out the hands, by the way, simply just hold on to the forearm. Be careful of this piece here, because this will come off. We will have to remove those in a second to include the Specium blade effects. But simply just take the hand off and find the hand that you want to use. Let's find a hand that actually has the thumbs facing inward, and easily pop that in place. So then you've got Zoffy then with opposed hands instead. I mean, certainly when it comes to it, I like that always that figures come included with all these extra hands. Closed fists tend not to be the hands I end up displaying with the figure. I was just like posed hands or more dynamic hands as the more interesting of the two. While the figure's now still standing, let's just get his feet to be a little bit flatter. Let's run through the effect now pieces that come included with the figure. Now, first of all, he comes with the Specium blade effect pieces. These will then swap out with the ones I just finished talking about there on the sides of his forearms. You simply just remove off, instead of actually talking about it, I should probably just show you. Before we actually do that, I wanted to show you the beam effect that's in the middle here. I really like the look of this. The Specium blade effects do add a little bit of extra pizzazz, and while they don't illuminate in any way, you can see at least that you've used a translucent blue plastic. Just though, be careful putting this onto the forearm of Zoffy. If you put pressure against this, I think it may potentially buckle the plastic. But if you, though, wanted to change out those, you simply just grab to the back of the figure, just remove these from the forearm. A couple of times, actually, while I'm doing the posability, these may inadvertently fall off, so I'm kind of giving you a warning well in advance. Just simply detach that, We'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Simply just remove these from the provided track. And then you'll take the specimen blades and we'll just attach them in place. Essentially what it is there's a little rectangular indentation on the bottom of this, and that fits just onto the rectangular peg. And just line everything up and plop it in place. I don't think necessarily it's a case where they're specific to one arm, as it seems to be the case that you can use them on either side because they look like they're symmetrical. Again, when you are putting them in place, just don't do what I just did. Don't put pressure against this, sort of just push them in on either side. And then you got, again, like the specimen blade effects. I like to really look at those. I'm not sure if I'm going to be displaying the figure with them. I did certainly start the review with having these on the forums of Zoffy, but I think I would much rather prefer to have the figure displayed with the Ultra Slash effects instead. To accomplish that, let's go ahead for right now and remove those. Maybe we'll just put these back for right now so I don't lose them. And just again, plug these in place. We'll do the exact same thing then on the other side. So we're just going to remove that for right now. Going to take then the back piece, replace it, or return it, I should say, back to the home where it started from. And while we put the figure down here for 1 second once more, I wanted to show you guys the slash effects the figure comes included with. Sort of similar in the way the specimen blade effects were, sort of making use of a nice translucent blue. It looks like, for me at least, that it's slightly darker on the inside of it. Could just be the way that it's molded, but I really like the effect that they've given this. Now these, though, will attach onto his wrists. In order to attach them onto the wrist, you simply can't just attach them. There's no really provided peg. So to come included with it, you get yourself a couple of these little wrist adapter pieces, which essentially is, let's just pick the figure back up for a second. It's basically replacing this piece right here. The only thing that's now being included is the fact it includes now a clear peg. So what you will want to do is just detach these. Be careful, though, while you are detaching them, that you put them in a place where you know they're going to be. I mean, again, like they're just tiny little half bracelets, essentially. And then you're going to take then the new piece and clip it right where this was once. Now we're just going to fit that back into place. Now, the thing about it, though, is you want to make sure that the hands are out of the way. There are a couple of times that I've done this where if the hands are too close to the wrist, for example, I find it's a harder time then to attach the bracelets. And again, we're just going to line everything up as best we can get it. I want to make sure I've got the right side here. Is it right? Maybe it's this side. Okay, I think it was actually, yeah, this one right here. So unlike, for example, the specimen blades, these ones actually have a provided purpose. So like this one, the one I was trying to do is in fact going to go on this side. So what we're going to do, now that that's plugged in place, if you actually look at the Ultra Slash effects, on the back of it, or I guess depending on which way you're looking at it, but if you flip it around to the back, you'll notice that there's a little peg hole on the back. It isn't, though, an exact circle. What it is if you look at the peg is actually more of a half circle. So when you're putting it in place, you will want to make sure, of course, that you've got it facing the right way. I mean, obviously, it's only going to fit really one way because it's supposed to spiral around his hand. I mean, this is best, of course, served by actually having a gestured hand in place. I don't think it would really work as well by having a closed fist. Or again, like if you wanted to have, for example, what they describe in the instructions as more the fanned hand, you can also go that route also as well. Now, again, you would simply just rinse and repeat and pop that then on the other side. But I think for me, at least when it comes to displaying the figure, Zoffy will be displayed most definitely with the Ultra Slash effects instead, because I just think it's a lot cooler. Let's go at least right now. We're going to remove these back again, because I know just getting a closer look at the figure, show you guys the posability for the figure. I want to make sure that nothing gets in the way of things. And actually, while I'm doing that, let's just take that back off. We're going to put the bracelet back in place. Just again, because that little lip of plastic, I don't want to clip it by mistake. And again, we're just going to fit this back on. It's a little harder to do just because it's a very, very small piece. But that's now back in place. Let's go and resume with looking at the rest of the figure. First of all, I can say right away, if you're a fan of Ultraman, Threezero has done an incredible job of replicating the Zoffy suit from Season 2. The colors on this one is really quite good. It's sort of a combination of that very familiar silver color mixed nicely with this burgundy red that they've incorporated. In a way, for me at least, it reminds me of the Mark V suit of Iron Man, sort of the way that they've mingled the red with the silver. Spin this around so you can see like all the panel work that they've added to the piece. And again, there's lots of posability we'll talk more about in a moment. The head sculpt, like I said, there's nothing I really would have changed. I really, though, wish that the eyes could have been a little bit brighter than what they actually were, but all in all, the fact that this does actually light up is a nice touch on Threezero's part. They tend to always usually do this, whether it be these ones or, say, for example, the Transformers. They always try to find a way to incorporate the light-up function so it replicates the look of the character from either the series or the movie. You do have some matte black that's also added here to the sides of his torso, so it does bring a little bit of more grounded colors, simply just because you got so much silver, so many metallic colors at play. It's nice that they actually incorporate a little bit more of a matte black added in there as well. but all the colors are really nice and rich on this. Parts that are red, for example, I would imagine are probably the parts that were painted, maybe like the silver, for example, were all the things that were initially molded in silver. But I will say, like, to the credit, the silver's paint, or the red is painted quite well. There's no bleed. There's nothing that's actually found its way onto then the silver next to it. All in all, like, the paint is really good on these pieces. Now, for the articulation on Zoffy, going back once again to his head sculpt, the head does, for all intents and purposes, would allow you to rotate it all the way around. The only problem with it, though, is I think the little bottom of the helmet here is the thing that really gets in the way of preventing it from rotating all the way around. In a perfect world, though, if not for that, I would imagine you'd be able to rotate the head all the way around. The head looks up only about this far. The head also looks down quite a lot more. But then the figure also has a secondary ball joint at the base of the neck, so that gives you a little bit extra reach also as well. Collectively, really, between the two, there's a lot of mileage that you can actually get from the head, being the fact it has a ball joint here and has a ball joint right here. Then for the top of his torso is, I feel, a little bit on the more limited side, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way they've got the spine section sculpted in there, and that's just based on the design of Zoffy. But yeah, the torso does only rotate just a little bit back and forth. There really isn't any additional articulation. I mean, you can rock it back and forth this way, so at least there's that. The abdomen, though, on the other hand, is really where this figure does get the chance to shine when it comes to his posability. You can move it down quite far and quite back also, and you can also rock it back and forth as well. Now, for the shoulders are actually on hinge joints. So first of all, you can actually bring these out too. So if you wanted to, say, bring his arms outward, first of all, there's two hinges here at play. There's a ball joint here, and then there's a ball joint right here. But if you do find like the shoulders are getting in the way, it's just simply a case of bringing those shoulders up by the hinges, bring the arms up to where you want to have them, and then just kind of bring the shoulders back down. You never have to worry that the shoulders are going to be getting in the way. The arms rotate all the way around. That's the case on both the sides. You can rotate, of course, at the biceps section. You can also double hinges at the elbows, and the hands rotate all the way around. By the way, the whole time while I've been talking away, I'm sure you guys would be curious as to what exactly is die-cast on this. I would imagine like the body itself is all die-cast frame. But like the arms, for example, feel like they're probably plastic. The head obviously is plastic. The torso is the part that really does feel the heaviest and the coolest to the touch. So this likely feels like it's the die-cast part. And there seems to be some die-cast really making up the majority of the legs also as well. Speaking of legs, the legs do hinge out. Now, there are some limitations based on the way I've got it configured right now. The legs give you about this much of a split. If, though, you did want to bring the legs forward, there's a little bit of a skirting that he has that's going to be getting a little bit in the way of things. What you can do, though, is you can drop the legs down just a little bit. In the instructions also as well, it shows you exactly how to bring these down. It's just a case, essentially, I don't know if you can see it inside. Can you see it inside? There's a ball joint right there. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm just bringing the leg outward. And based then on that, I can bring the leg a little bit further forward because I now left the gap space in between the top of the thigh and the lower half of his waist. The only thing about it, though, is when you are putting the legs back in place, you want to make sure that you push this in enough, but you don't hit the side of the skirts. So again, like you want to just kind of make sure it's brought in, but you don't want to be rubbing against the top of this because that could potentially chip the plastic. The legs do swivel just only by a little bit. There is, though, however, a double hinge on the knee. And then when it comes to his feet, the front flaps of his feet, try saying that 5 times fast, do actually, if you bring these out, will allow the feet a lot more movement than before. You can also rock these also back and forth as well. And there is toe articulation too. Although I noticed with the toe articulation, there's only so far that it actually goes. It gets almost to a point where I feel like I'm going to start to buckle the plastic. So while there's toe articulation, this top piece right here is like covering over everything. So you just want to be careful of that. All in all, though, it's a fantastic looking figure. Once again, Threezero shows exactly why they're the kings when it comes to die-cast collectibles. The fact that this figure also sits at only $150, I can certainly understand why he sold out as fast as he did. But though, if you are a fan of Ultraman and a big fan of the Ultraman series and would like to get your hands on the Season 2 Zoffy, he is available. He's not available, though, unfortunately, over on their site. They have long, though, since sold out of the figure, but I'm sure you probably could track one down on other sites that sell collectibles if you're interested to get one for yourself. The thing that continues to impress me about Threezero is the fact that they're able to release high-quality collectibles like this, with many at times being die-cast at the price of which they sell them for. And right away, obviously, that's probably one of the reasons why the Ultraman suit Zoffy sold out as fast as it did over on their website. To sell this guy as low as they did, $149 is unheard of, considering you get essentially a die-cast figure with light-up functions on both the features of the front of his face and also the area in his chest as well, not to mention the included accessories. For me personally, I would like to display this guy myself with the Ultra Slash effect parts, but I do appreciate the fact that they also include the Specium blade effects, depending of course on how you'd like to display the figure. But the colors are on this guy, though only really two, the silver and the red, not to mention of course the matte black that they've also added as well, seem to be all very well painted on the figure. I've never really had a problem when it comes to paint applications that Threezero's talented artists have ever put to these pieces. Yeah, again, like if you guys are a fan of the Ultraman and certainly would like to get your hand on the Zoffy suit, sad to say, unfortunately, it has since sold out over on Threezero's store. But I'm sure, again, you probably could track one down on various other online sites that sell Threezero pieces. Once again, a big thank you to the folks over at Threezero that did take the time and provide the Ultraman Season 2 Zoffy anime suit that we could have a look at in this review. Have you had the chance to pick up this one for yourself? And if you have, let me know down below in the comment section how you have the figure displayed. Which configuration or which weapons do you have the figure wielding? Also, as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit it with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and you're on board to certainly see some more Threezero stuff, don't worry, more is coming your way. If you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and you're also turning on the bell notification. Sorry, what? You got a little bit of extra time on your hands? Well then, popping up at the very end of this video will also be a playlist of other things I've covered for Threezero over the years, with many more to follow. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.